anti-aging. Well, kind of, because anti-aging is everywhere, right? Creams, pills, they try to sell you everything for anti-aging. And it's really all about how to look younger. But how do we really do it? How can we prevent aging? Is it in a cream or a pill, or is it from within? And what do we actually mean by aging? Do we mean staying young, or do we mean preventing disease? Let's talk about that. And when we talk about anti-aging, I'm pretty sure we would all agree that we don't just really want to live longer, right? We want to live longer, but healthier. It's not just about living longer, it's about living well longer. If I told you that you could live an extra 20 years, but it would be bedridden with a feeding tube, obviously that's not what you want, right? When we talk about anti-aging, we're talking about living well longer. It's not about how many years, it's about how many good years. And when we talk about feeling young or looking young, what we're really talking about is not getting sick or deteriorated. When you think of yourself 20 years from now, what do you see yourself doing? Do you want to be able to keep up with your children and grandchildren? Do you want to be able to keep traveling and enjoying your life? Or do you want to be in a nursing home? Obviously, I'm assuming the answer is the first part. So, how exactly do we do that? How can we live longer and live better? That's what we're going to talk about today. But before I jump in, I always want to let you know how to reach me and my team. If you're watching us on Facebook, let us know you're here. Drop the word live. It lets my team know. And if you have questions, even if it's not about this topic, this is the time to put it in. Wherever you are, type the word change, and it lets my team know that you want our show notes, and then we'll send them to you because I write this all out. It takes me hours to do it every week, believe it or not. And I do not use ChatGPT. I actually use this. If you're watching us on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're listening on the podcast, hi, hope you enjoy doing your chores. And let's see, I'm wearing blue today. My hair always looks fabulous. And I always wear the stethoscope my wife gave me because it's good luck. So podcast, wherever you are, don't forget to follow us on Instagram because we're funny. And if this is a topic that appeals to you or maybe someone else, share this with the people that you love so they can become game changers in their life. And in case you don't know who I am, my name is Dr. Efrat Lamondre. Everyone calls me E. And I invented the new method where we empower people to realize that their symptoms are not in their head because you always knew there was a better way. So wherever you are, join the conversation. Let us know that you're here. And let's start talking about living longer, but living better. So thanks to modern medicine, we are all living longer. I'm debating, saying, I'm looking sideways because we're actually living a little less longer than we used to, but that's not the point today. So we're living longer, but we're also sicker than ever. In the US, we have the highest number of preventable diseases. We have the highest number of preventable dysfunction and disability. And yet we have the most advanced medicine, and our population is sicker than ever. And that's why we need to talk about two terms. We need to talk about lifespan, and then we need to introduce a new term, which is health span. Lifespan is how long you live, and health span is how long you stay healthy. Lifespan is often predetermined by genes, but health span is determined by us. Our health span is determined by things we have control over to a certain extent. 90% of our health status is determined by the things we are exposed to. And a lot of times people on TikTok, or you might even be saying, that's not true. You can't change your genes. Whatever is in your card is in your card. And that's true for some genes, but not all genes. Obviously, the genes for your hair color or your eye color, once they're there, they're there. You can't change them. But there are certain genes that give you a predisposition to something, and they get turned on or expressed depending on what you're exposed to in your life. A lot of people have been taught that if mom had heart disease or dad had diabetes or Alzheimer's, that you're definitely going to get it. It's in the cards for you. But it doesn't have to be. The genes say you have a potential, a likelihood to get it. But the lifestyle and the environment will be the deciding factor if you actually express the gene. So if mom has diabetes, you still have to eat the food to get the diabetes. You won't automatically get it. If you lead a life with great nutrition and daily exercise, you don't automatically get diabetes just because mom had it. This is really important because it's empowering. It's empowering to know you have control. You're not the victim of your genes. Your genes load the gun, but your environment and your lifestyle pulls the trigger. So focusing on your environment, your nutrition, what you're exposed to is the key part of keeping yourself healthy. And of course, that's what we're going to focus on today. Now, you might say, why isn't this something that my medical provider tells me about? Why isn't this spoken about? And that's because, and I say this over and over again, but in medical school, nursing school, PA school, we learn about diseases. Everything in the medical system is designed to help us once we're sick. It starts from sickness and on. We never learned what we need to do to prevent disease or to optimize health. That's where functional medicine excels. It's not alternative medicine, by the way. When people say you practice alternative medicine, no, it's not alternative. It uses all the conventional medicine tools and standards. The main difference is that conventional medicine starts at the abnormality, starts at the disease, at the dysfunction. Functional medicine starts at pre-disease. What happened in the first place to get the person sick? In functional medicine, we know that heart disease, Alzheimer's, diabetes are just the end result of years of issues like inflammation. So functional medicine focuses on inflammation and how to lower chronic inflammation, because inflammation over time causes you to become sick and to age faster than you need to. And that's where the term inflammaging comes on. Let me put this on the screen. Inflammaging. Google it. I didn't make it up. It's a pretty cool term, though. And the NIH defines inflammaging as an age-related increase in the levels of pro-inflammatory markers in blood and tissues, and states it's a strong risk factor for multiple diseases that are highly prevalent and frequent cause of disability in elderly individuals, but are pathophysiologically uncorrelated. That was a really long sentence, and you know I'm going to break it down for you. But basically what the sentence is saying, inflammaging is when you have a lot of inflammatory markers in your blood and your tissues. And it's been discovered that all these inflammatory markers are a strong risk factor for so many diseases, different diseases that are highly prevalent, but are pathophysiologically unrelated. So the same inflammation can produce different diseases, even though the diseases themselves seem unrelated. So the bottom line is, if you want to stay healthy, if you want to stay young, if you want to live a long time, if you want to feel good, if you want to avoid the chronic disease of aging, you need to focus on inflammation, because inflammation causes disease and it causes what we associate with aging. Inflammation is what's creating all these chronic diseases and poor health. You may see autoimmune diseases, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, obesity, dementia as diseases, but in reality, they're just the end result of years of uncontrolled inflammation. And this is so important because we always think that the causes of death is what we see at the end, the heart disease, the cancer, the diabetes, the Alzheimer's, but they're just the downstream consequences of imbalances in our biology and years of inflammation, things that we can do something about. Inflammation over time will express different diseases for different people depending on their genes. So again, you may have the genetic predisposition for a disease, but the inflammation that you bring onto your life from your lifestyle choices is what will turn those genes on and express the disease. So the same lifestyle in one person will create diabetes, and in the next person might create an autoimmune issue, and the next person it might create heart disease. So it's the same inflammation, but whatever genes you have will be expressed when you have exposed to that inflammation. So when we have someone who's sick or unwell, we shouldn't just say, hey, how do I treat this disease? We have to say, how did this person have inflammation in the first place? What caused the inflammation in the first place? What is in their environment that's causing this inflammation? Is it their food, lack of sleep? Is there a stressful event? Are they exposed to a chemical? Do they have an infection? So the first piece is to understand that disease and aging are a result of inflammation. And the second piece is figuring out what's causing the inflammation. Now, I just want to say, when I say inflammation is important. Good, acute inflammation. It's a part of the immune system's response to an outside insult, whether it's a bacteria, a virus, or an injury. And you want to have a good, quick inflammatory response to fight off the attack. But we need to be able to turn that inflammation off. When the attack is over, inflammation has to shut off. Inflammaging is when we have this low levels of chronic inflammation in the body It's like a smoldering burn that predisposes us towards more rapid aging. Inflammation causes a lot of things. I'm just going to say some general statements because there's one I want to focus on. So it causes cytokines, which damage your cells. It also affects your mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell. I don't want to spend time on those two right now. But there's another really cool fact of what inflammation does. And inflammation causes us to create something called zombie cells. The technical term is senescent cells, but zombie cells sound so much scarier. So we're going to use the word zombie cells. Again, I didn't invent it. It already exists. So let me explain to you what zombie cells are and how they affect our aging. So all cells in our body have an expiration date. And when they hit their expiration date, they die. It's a process called apoptosis. It's supposed to happen. The body then uses some of the parts to make new cells, and some of the parts just get flushed out. This is the normal life cycle of a cell. However, some cells don't get the message and they get messed up by inflammation. And instead of spontaneously dying, they just kind of hang out and they stay at the party way past their welcome. Don't be one of those people. These are called senescent cells or zombie cells because they're not functioning properly, but they're also not dying. And in this in-between state, they're producing more inflammation. So inflammation creates the zombie cells, and then the zombie cells create more inflammation, which can now create more zombie cells. To quote Dr. Nathan Lebroseur, and I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong because I don't actually know him personally, of the Mayo Clinic, it's like moldy fruit in a bowl that affects the fruit near it. Once you have it, it just creates more and more damage. So when I say reducing inflammation, it's about lowering the damage of inflammation in general, as well as on the mitochondria, but it's also about stopping these zombie cells. And all this talk, I hope it's clear, it's not about trying to find the fountain of youth. It's not about staying young forever. It's about getting old without being sick. And if you're already sick, and you may not be able to reverse depending what illness you have, but you can stop it from further deteriorating. And, possibly depending what you have, maybe reversing, but at the very least, let's stop it from getting worse. So the question is going to be, got it? Inflammation, disease, aging, got it. Zombie cells, I'm scared. But how do we reduce inflammation and stop inflammaging? And of course, the general answer is always going to be what you eat, how you sleep, how you move, your stress. But let's dig a little deeper. Always, 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 I might sound like a broken record, but eventually you're going to believe me. The first is your gut. The function and the balance of your digestive system and your microbiome is always the first system we have to look at, because the most important thing is to change our diet. If you're eating the standard American diet, it's got to go. Ultra processed foods, high sugar, high refined starches, full of chemicals and additives and pesticides and artificial flavors and colorings. It's causing inflammation with every bite. So I know I talk about stomach each time, but each time it's for something else. Sometimes it's about your skin. Sometimes it's about your brain. Today, it's about inflammation. I need you to understand that it always starts here. And another thing, whether you want to hear it or not, gluten in this country is a huge inflammatory food. I know some of you might roll your eyes, but probably not if you're already listening to me. You're in the vortex. The problem is that the majority of wheat grown in the US tends to be what's called hard red wheat, which has a high in protein content, mostly in gluten. And this is why some people, not celiac, true celiacs can't eat gluten no matter what. But some people who are non-celiac gluten sensitive, when they go to different countries, sometimes they are able to eat things that have wheat in them, things that have gluten, because it does not have as much gluten in there. Figured I should tell you why that happens. Dairy is another big one. Sorry, I know we all love ice cream. I get it. But it creates inflammation, overproduction of mucus, acne, skin issues, gut issues. In fact, my wife just told me this morning that there was a big dermatological symposium. This is kind of off the mark here, but dermatology symposium where they finally discovered that what happens in your gut can affect your skin, psoriasis, acne, rosacea. So it took them until 23 to figure this out. But you know what? I'm glad that they're here. So awesome. Anyway, let me get back on track. Sugar, it's a huge factor in inflammation. It creates inflammation in the body, And not only does it create inflammation, but eating too much sugar, insulin resistance, which I'll talk about in a moment, actually creates what we call visceral fat, fat that surrounds the organs. We don't want that because what does that do? Produces more inflammation. So that's the stuff you need to remove, right? The sugar, the dairy, the standard American diet. But people often ask me, what do I need to include? What does it look like to have an anti-inflammatory diet? Here are the basics. You have to have a colorful plate. Color from the phytochemicals in plant food, not from, yellow dye number 5. You need the deep reds, the blues, the purples, the oranges, the yellows, the greens. Look at your plate. You should have colors. If your plate has colors, you are eating powerful medicine that reduces inflammation. And the more close to the wild you can get, the better. And I know it's hard. I live in a city. I was just talking to my wife this morning about how do we get, better source food. But the more organic, the better. If there's a farmer market near you, they're great for that. Because your average tomato that's been shipped across the country and then stored in a box and several refrigerators along the way that can last for months on the shelf is probably not going to be as full of nutrients. Now, still better than Doritos, but not as good as off the vine. I always go to Doritos. I don't know why. I don't even like them that much. I always mention them. Anyway, when you're eating meat, consider pasture-raised animals or grass-fed meat. All meat is not the same. We know that grass-fed animals, pasture-raised animals are very different than conventional. We know from studies that if you have conventional meat, you'll raise inflammation. But if you have more wilder, pasture-raised or grass-fed meat, it'll lower inflammation because the animal themselves have less inflammation because they're eating better food. When we talk about gut health, we always have to mention the bacteria living there. So make sure you're also having prebiotic food, probiotic food. Prebiotic food is just different fibers you can get that feed the probiotics. You can get it from artichokes, asparagus, plantains, super important. And then the probiotic foods are kimchi, sauerkraut, pickles, tempeh. All of these are kind of traditional ancient foods that have been fermented and they help your microbiome. Of course, you can also get supplements, but always better to try to get it from food. And of course, using herbs and spices, a lot of them just reduce inflammation. Ginger, garlic, turmeric, oregano, parsley, super anti-inflammatory. And you could just include this as part of your cooking. Also, you want to include omega-3 fats. Again, yes, you can get them in supplements, and I'm going to talk about supplements in a moment, but it's super important. Omega-3 helps regulate inflammation. And this entire conversation right now is inflammation and inflammaging. So you want to stick to the small fish, sardines, herring, mackerel, anchovies. Small wild-caught salmon can be good. And omega-3 is also found in like low glycemic fruits, berries, kiwis, nuts, seeds, very anti-inflammatory. Again, unless you're on AIP, you're going to have to ignore this part. But for anyone who's not on an AIP protocol, walnuts, almonds, pecans, hazelnuts, macadamia nuts, super anti-inflammatory. And last week, we also talked about autoimmune issues. And I just want to say, obviously, we need our immune system. We need to keep it healthy, keep us fighting against infections and invaders. But we also need to calm it down because when it overreacts with our current modern lifestyle, it creates inflammation. It affects the immune system. It creates a highly overactive immune system. If you have a lot of allergies and inflammatory diseases, autoimmune diseases, that's an immune system that's super inflamed. Again, can be triggered by foods, which is why we always start with the belly. Sleep. I'm not going to talk a lot about sleep because I did a whole episode on it, but you need to sleep. There's no point in eating all these nuts and all these probiotics and prebiotics if you're getting 2 hours of sleep in. You have to sleep 7 to 9 hours, solid hours, because you need time to rest and recover. Watch the episode. I go into it deeply about why sleep is so important. And I always say, you can't be out here eating gluten-free ice and not sleeping. It's not going to work out for you. Movement, exercise is hugely anti-inflammatory. Not if you over-exercise. So please don't run out and join like the next CrossFit extravaganza. But if you exercise enough, extravaganza, whatever, it worked. But if you exercise enough, and we're talking about the general recommendation is 30 minutes of vigorous exercise in a day. Strength training a few times a week can help reduce inflammation and strengthen your immune system and help improve your insulin sensitivity and reduce inflammation. Now, that's a general recommendation. I always like to take a moment here and not say it's 30 minutes for everyone. Some people need more, some people need less or can do less. And it's really important that you respect that and don't push yourself to the 30 minutes just because I said it. In fact, shout out to one of our game changers. She is currently measuring her movement in driveways, meaning she could walk to the end of the driveway and back. And last time we spoke, she was up to 3 driveways. If you're listening, I'm proud of you. Can't wait to hear how many driveways you're up to. So, whatever it takes, whatever your movement looks like, just move. And of course, we also have to focus on managing our stress. We like to ignore that, like it's not important, but it's important. It actually creates inflammation in your body. When we're stressed, we produce inflammation. We create stress molecules. It's not just a mind thing, it's actually in your body. And I know we can't avoid stress. I'm not telling you to let it all go. We have to get done what we need to get done, but we need to learn how to regulate the stress, regulate our cortisol levels. We need to learn how to master our minds, master our diets. We can exercise, we can sleep, we do all those things. But if you don't get your mindset straight, unless you get your thinking straight, you're going to just keep generating a lot of stress in your body, which is going to age you rapidly. And today we're talking about not aging. So you want to be able to change your thoughts. Your thoughts literally drive inflammation. And I know for some of you, and I'm saying this, it's resonating for you. Some of you maybe not. For some of you, you know that there's certain thoughts, you feel it in your belly, gets you agitated. The fire in your belly starts not in a good way. We need to change that. We want to change the quality of our relationships. If you're in a toxic relationship, all the gluten-free food in the world is not going to help you. It drives up inflammation. But if you're in a loving relationship, it actually slows down inflammation. Just something to consider, please. And always, I like to give you guys a few supplements to use. So let's talk about some supplements. Excuse me. Sorry for being human. Vitamin D, super important. It regulates over 300 different genes, many of them in charge of regulating inflammation. So getting your vitamin D right means getting your inflammation right. Also really important, fish oil or omega-3. I know some people don't want or can't take fish oil. There are vegan sources, but you want to get omega-3 fatty acid supplements in there because it is super anti-inflammatory and it's very hard to get just in your diet. B complex, super important in regulating metabolism, immune function, antioxidant levels, glutathione levels. You know, I think glutathione is magic. And a new supplement, I don't know if I've mentioned before, it's not new, but new for us, is quercetin. It's a natural compound. It's found in apples and onions and has so many beneficial effects. It's antiviral. It helps gut healing. It's a natural antihistamine. And it has been shown to kill off zombie cells, which would be really, really nice. So I hope you're beginning to get the sense that if you have a disease or worried about a disease, if you're worried about aging or anti-aging because of the genes in your family, that you can't just look at just the genes, okay? There's a lot that's happening around you that can activate these genes. And you also can't look just at one organ like, oh, it's my thyroid. Mom has a thyroid issue. I'm going to have a thyroid issue. Or my pancreas. You have to look at the whole body and understand that it's all connected. The underlying denominator between all diseases is inflammation. And the key is treating the system and the entire system, not just the organ that's having an issue. You have to treat the entire system, remove the things that create inflammation, and provide those things that restore balance. That's why I spent time going over an anti-inflammatory diet. It's not just about removal. It's about putting in the good stuff. And this can be done at any age, at any stage of disease. But of course, the sooner you start, the better. Your health status at this moment in time is determined by all the inputs of your life. Your nutrition, your exercise, the quality of your sleep, your stress, all of it, your exposure to toxins and allergens, microbes, your relationships, your beliefs, your thoughts, the purpose and the meaning you have in your life, all of it connects to your inflammation, which then affects your genes, which then determines your health status. So I know this is a lot. And if you want to work with me and my team, of course, this is how to reach us. It's at The New Method everywhere, except for Twitter, because I talk too much, at The New Method on every platform. And I hope to hear from you and I hope you become a game changer in your life. And I want to empower you that no matter what, it's not in your head and that you always knew there was a better way. I'll see you guys next week.